Professor Yunus gave our founder, Alex Counts, $6,000. And for those of you starting social enterprises, Alex's advice would be ask for a lot more. $6,000 is not going to get you very far. But in any case, Grameen Foundation was started at that time. This is about 1997. There was, people of a particular community were starting to hear about microfinance. It hadn't sort of captured the public imagination as it did after the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006, but there were people who did know about it. And Professor Yunus would come into the US, get everyone all excited, and leave. And most of his work actually is exclusively focused in Bangladesh. So they're like, what do? I want to get involved. So Grameen Foundation was set up to essentially channel the energy, resources, and support of those people in the US to grow microfinance outside of Bangladesh. And what Grameen did for the last 10 years was essentially try to identify, select, and support what would essentially be the next Grameen banks in countries all over the world. As you can see, we work in 4 regions. Asia is the biggest one for us and probably the most important. The Middle East and North Africa, I'm not sure all these highlighted countries are accurate, to be honest. Sub-Saharan Africa and the Americas. As you can see, the Americas is our smallest business. Sub-Saharan Africa is newest. Middle East and North Africa, like I said, I'm not sure that's completely updated. I need to look at that later. But Asia is a very important region for us in terms of microfinance. What do we do? As I said earlier, our mission is to empower the poor, especially the poorest, to create a world without poverty. We spent the last 10 years really looking at how we grow the next Grameen banks. We think what we really should be focusing on is something a little bit different these days, and it's how do we make sure as microfinance grows, and as any of you who know who've been involved in the idea of social business, balancing the social and the business is probably one of the greater challenges that exists in any kind of business today. It is not easy and should not be underestimated. In terms of microfinance, we really want to make sure that microfinance continues to reach the poor, continues to move down to the poorest. It doesn't just say, and this is where we talk about changing mindsets, it doesn't just say, oh, the poorest can't possibly use microfinance and move on. Well, maybe we're not thinking about it good enough. Maybe we're not considering the options. Maybe we haven't asked them the right questions to understand. I'm not suggesting that microfinance is right for everyone, but we shouldn't just dismiss it as wrong for an entire population, because that's what we did with finance for so many years. When we talk about advancing practice, when you look at microfinance and poverty maps in Asia, they mismatch. Actually, microfinance has largely reached the people easiest to reach. That's not okay with us. We have to find ways to change that balance. When we look at the growth, I talked about making sure people continue to be reached. We developed a tool that allows us to measure that if there's a positive impact on their lives over time. So we said these are the kind of things we want to focus on. The challenges are access to capital for the poor, access to information and services and technology, and we said we're going to develop specific tools and expertise, much of which we already have, in a number of different areas to tackle that. And I've put a couple of solutions. So providing financing to those serving and developing innovative financial services and technology to accelerate movement out of poverty. The business in a box would be a good idea. That's not something we would have traditionally financed, but we will do that. We're looking in the Philippines, where microfinance is largely urban, to focusing on Mindanao, which is not a region, as you know from recent events in the news, that many people are that interested in. But we feel like if we're going to reach the poor, we need to look at Mindanao. We look at mobile technology to deliver information in health, agricultural, and other areas, as well as financing. In Uganda, we have just completed, it's not just now, it's about 6 months ago, we completed a 2.5-year project with Google. And it wasn't google.org, it was google.com and MTN, which is the largest telecommunications company in Africa, essentially providing applications on phones, things that we used every day, Google Maps. I'm actually not a big app user, but probably more of you have applications on your phones that you find extraordinarily useful. These are applications that have been designed for the simplest, most stripped down, cheapest basic phone you can find, but provide things like one's called Farmer's Friend. So Someone can send a text message either themselves or through a community knowledge worker. We're working with people who can reach down farther with people who are illiterate, and say, I have a problem with banana rot. The leaves of my banana trees are rotting. What should I do? And the message will be texted back. Things around weather. Another one that's really interesting, these are things we would probably not think of, is a clinic finder. So in Africa in particular, a woman would become ill. She would go to a clinic. That day the doctor wouldn't be there, or he would be there, or she would be there and say, you need this medicine, but we don't have it. You need to go over there, and over there wouldn't have it. So it would be this huge opportunity cost, a huge amount of time spent. Now all you have to do is kind of text in and out and find out. These are very simple. They show the potential of information that poor people don't have access to, not only to change information they do have access to, but the way we think about serving them. 4 billion people have access to mobile phones today. It's like a computer. How do we use that to empower them? I think just one more example, because in the spirit of the climate change, we've also gotten very interested, partly because of the climate change, but partly because we see this as a major challenge in just reducing poverty and dealing with issues like health. We've looked at the renewable energy space. In India, we are looking at solar technology as a power source for poor people, and essentially not looking to build technology ourselves, not looking to run a solar business ourselves, but to kind of work with the organization that was kind of the Grameen Bank of energy, to create a whole space, first in India, but then outside, of social entrepreneurs creating energy businesses that serve the poor and poorest. This is a very early stage idea, but we're very excited about its potential. So just in conclusion, I think that social enterprise is incredibly powerful. I think as we think about it, particularly from a place like Hong Kong, I encourage you to think about it in terms of how it can serve the poorest people. Don't dismiss that it can't be used for them. There are so many innovative and unique ways to think about this and challenge ourselves to not leave anyone behind as we look at these opportunities. Microfinance is a good demonstration not only in what can be done, but how you can solve a problem like this that seems intractable. And it was really a pleasure to speak with you about this today. Let me open it up for questions or comments or thoughts from you all.
I have two questions. The first one is about the profitability of Grameen Bank. I want to ask, what sort of interest rate does Grameen Bank charge? Would it be above or below the commercial banks? Would the sustainability of Grameen Bank be manageable, or is it more profitable for some reason? Would there be cultural differences? Would there be profitability differences because of cultural or something? And the second question is more personal. I want to ask, how did you get into your career in Grameen Bank? If you were to advise a undergraduate into this sort of career, how would you advise them?
Okay, so let me start with the first question. What rate does Grameen Bank charge? Either 18 or 20% effective annual rate. Is that above the rate that commercial banks charge? Yes. Why? Because those services are delivered at the village level, and because those services are, the costs of delivering those services at the village level are spread over tiny loans. It's not like giving $1 million loan that you can spread the cost of providing that. Are there differences culturally from country? The Middle East and North Africa may be slightly different because it is on banking and other things, and I don't have enough expertise to be able to comment on that, so I apologize. But in the context of Asia, cultural differences aren't as important as the vision and commitment of the management of an organization to set an interest rate that is sustainable, but may or may not create a huge amount of profitability. Sustainability is just the ability to cover your costs. Profitability is how much above that, essentially, are you willing to charge. To be honest, interest rates range from, we think the average should be around 30 to 32% in Asia.